Admiral Krextall stood before the massive viewing screen on his flagship's bridge. His four eyes focused on the data streams flowing across the holographic displays. The information made him feel annoyed rather than concerned. 47 small ships had appeared at the edge of the Kepler 442 system. They moved in a loose formation that showed no real military training. Commander Yoss, what do our sensors tell us about these vessels? Krextall asked his second-in-command. Commander Yoss, a tall being with blue skin and 6 arms, worked quickly at his station. The ships appear to be made of basic metal alloys, Admiral. We detect no energy shields. Their weapons seem to be simple kinetic launchers. Very primitive technology. Krextall's tail swished behind him, a sign of mild amusement among his people. How primitive are we talking about? Our database suggests they are at least 2,000 years behind current galactic standards. The ships look like cargo haulers more than warships. Their hulls are thick, but show no advanced materials. No plasma cores detected. No antimatter signatures. They appear to use some kind of chemical propulsion system. Another officer, this one from the insectoid Vextar species, clicked his mandibles together. Admiral, these ships remind me of the ancient vessels we see in our history museums. They are flying relics. The bridge crew shared what passed for laughter among the different species. Krextall felt his confidence grow. His third fleet consisted of 300 advanced warships. Each vessel in his fleet could probably destroy 10 of these primitive craft without taking damage. This would be easier than expected. Do we have any information about the species flying these ships? Krextall asked. Commander Yoss pulled up a holographic image. Limited data, sir. Our long-range scouts encountered them briefly in the outer territories 6 months ago. They call themselves humans. They appear to be bipedal mammals from a planet they call Earth. Our xenobiology department classified them as a minor species of little concern. The image showed a creature that looked soft and weak to Krextall's eyes. 2 arms, 2 legs, no natural armor, no visible weapons. They seemed almost fragile compared to the 7 species that made up the Zephyrian hegemony. What does their home world tell us about their capabilities? Krextall asked. The planet is classified as extremely hostile, Admiral. High gravity, unstable weather patterns, and dangerous native life forms. But this actually works against them. Living in such conditions probably made them desperate and aggressive, but it also limited their technological development. They likely spent all their time just trying to survive. Krextall nodded. This made sense. Many primitive species came from difficult worlds. They learned to fight, but they never learned to build proper technology. They remained trapped in their own small corner of the galaxy while advanced civilizations like the hegemony spread across the stars. Sir, incoming transmission from the human fleet, reported the communications officer. Put it on screen. Let's see what these primitives want. The screen flickered and showed a human female. She had short brown hair and wore a simple uniform. Her eyes looked directly at the camera with no sign of fear. This surprised Krextall slightly. Most primitive species showed proper respect when facing a superior force. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earthship Defiant. We are conducting a peaceful survey mission in this system. We request permission to complete our scientific studies before moving on. Krextall almost laughed out loud. Scientific studies? These creatures with their ancient technology wanted to study a system that the hegemony was about to claim? Human Admiral, Krextall said, making sure his voice carried the proper tone of authority. I am Admiral Krextall, of the Zephyrian Hegemony Third Fleet. This system belongs to the hegemony, by right of superior claim. You will withdraw immediately, or face the consequences. The human woman's face showed no emotion. Admiral Krextall, we request 24 hours to complete our current operations. We will then withdraw as requested. 24 hours? Krextall felt his anger rising. These primitives dared to negotiate with him? Did they not understand that his fleet could wipe them out in minutes? You have 1 hour, he said coldly. After that, any human vessel remaining in this system will be destroyed. This is your only warning. The transmission ended. The bridge fell silent as the crew waited for their admiral's orders. Deploy surveillance drones, Krextall commanded. I want to know everything about those ships. If they try anything suspicious, we will end this quickly. Commander Yas hesitated. Sir? Should we prepare the fleet for combat? Krexel looked at his second-in-command with surprise. Combat? Against 47 primitive vessels? Commander? A single battle group could handle this situation. We have 7 full battle groups. This is not combat. This is pest control. The surveillance drones launched from several ships and moved toward the human fleet. The data they sent back confirmed what the sensors had already shown. The human ships looked even more primitive up close. Their hulls showed wear and basic construction. No energy fields protected them. Their weapons appeared to be simple metal tubes. Admiral, said the Vextar officer, their ships are actually using physical ammunition. Metal projectiles fired by chemical explosives. I have never seen technology this backward in active use. Are they moving to withdraw? Krextel asked. No, sir. They maintain position and continue their scanning operations. They show no signs of preparing to leave. Krexel made his decision. These humans needed to learn respect for their betters. He would give them a demonstration they would never forget. Send a message to all ship captains, he ordered. In 55 minutes, if any human vessel remains in this system, we will open fire. Make sure every weapon is ready. I want this to be quick and decisive. The crew worked efficiently to prepare for battle. Krextal watched the human ships on his screen. They moved slowly and seemed unaware of the overwhelming force aimed at them. Their admiral had looked confident during the communication, but confidence meant nothing against superior firepower. He thought about the trilithium deposits on the 3rd planet of this system. The rare mineral would fuel hegemony ships for decades. These primitive humans had wandered into the wrong place, at the wrong time. After today, word would spread through the galaxy. No minor species would dare challenge the hegemony again. The countdown timer on his screen showed 53 minutes remaining. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the command center of the UES Defiant. Around her, the crew worked quietly at their stations. The ship's main screen showed the massive alien fleet spread across space like a metal cloud. 300 ships, each one larger than anything in the human formation. Ma'am, we're receiving multiple sensor sweeps from their surveillance drones, reported Lieutenant Torres from the communications station. They're trying to get detailed scans of our ships. Let them look, Chen said calmly. Make sure all external systems are operating exactly as they should be. Commander Williams, her second-in-command, moved to stand beside her. Admiral, their technology appears significantly advanced. Energy weapons, force fields, faster-than-light communication systems. We're looking at a coalition of multiple species. Chen nodded. The intelligence briefings had prepared her for this possibility. The galaxy was full of ancient civilizations that had been traveling between stars for thousands of years. Humanity was new to this game, and everyone knew it. What about their tactics and formation? She asked. Traditional battle line formation, ma'am. They're arranging their ships in 3 layers, with heavy cruisers in front and support vessels behind. Very organized, but also very predictable. It's exactly what our simulation program said they would do. Chen allowed herself a small smile. The alien admiral had been exactly what she expected. Arrogant, dismissive, and completely confident in his superiority. He saw 47 primitive human ships and thought he was facing helpless prey. Time remaining on their ultimatum? Chen asked. 38 minutes, ma'am. Chen activated the ship's internal communication system. All hands. This is the Admiral. As you know, we have encountered a large alien fleet that has ordered us to leave this system. They believe we are weak and primitive. In 38 minutes, they plan to attack us. I want everyone to remember why we're here and what we represent. She paused, thinking about the long journey that had brought them to this moment. Earth's first contact with alien civilizations had not gone well. Humanity had been dismissed, ignored, or treated as a curiosity. Some species had been openly hostile, others had simply looked at human technology and laughed. But Earth's leaders had learned important lessons from those early encounters. They learned that appearing weak could be a strength, They learned that others would always underestimate what they couldn't understand. Commander Williams, signal the fleet. Initiate Protocol 7, Chen ordered. Williams smiled as he sent the coded message. Around the human formation, subtle changes began to take place. External sensor arrays that had been operating in passive mode switched to active scanning. Navigation systems that had been running simple programs loaded complex tactical software. Most importantly, each ship began a series of internal preparations that would have shocked the watching aliens. On the alien flagship, the surveillance drones continued their scans. Commander Yoss studied the incoming data with growing puzzlement. Admiral Krextall, I'm seeing some unusual readings from the human ships, he reported. What kind of unusual readings? Krextall asked without looking away from his tactical display. Their power signatures are increasing, but very gradually. It's almost like they're slowly warming up systems that were previously offline. Probably just preparing their engines for withdrawal, Krextall said dismissively. Even primitive ships need time to build power for faster-than-light travel. But Commander Yoss wasn't convinced. He had been studying alien technology for 30 years, and something felt wrong about these readings. The power increases weren't random. They followed patterns that suggested careful coordination between ships. Sir, I recommend we take a closer look at their weapon systems, he said. You're being paranoid, Commander. Look at their ships. Metal hulls, chemical propulsion, kinetic weapons. These are museum pieces. The only thing we need to worry about is making sure we destroy them quickly enough to send a clear message. Meanwhile, on the human ships, crews worked with practiced efficiency. Weapon systems that had been carefully disguised as simple kinetic launchers began revealing their true nature. Armor plating that appeared to be basic metal started showing additional layers underneath. Navigation computers loaded targeting data that had been collected during weeks of careful observation. Dr. Reyes, the fleet's xenobiologist, stood beside Admiral Chen, reviewing the latest intelligence reports. Ma'am, we've learned quite a bit about their physiology from the communication session. The primary species appears to be adapted to low-gravity environments. Their bone structure suggests they evolved on a world with maybe 60% of Earth's gravity. Weakness? Chen asked. They're probably much stronger than they appear, but they also probably can't handle high acceleration forces. Most of their allied species show similar adaptations. They've built their entire military doctrine around gradual, controlled movements. Chen processed this information. It matched everything humanity had observed about galactic civilization. Most species came from comfortable worlds with stable climates and low gravity. They had never been forced to adapt to the brutal conditions that shaped human evolution. Ma'am, Lieutenant Torres called out. We're receiving another transmission from the alien fleet. The main screen flickered and showed Admiral Krextall again. This time, he wasn't alone. Representatives from several alien species stood behind him, creating an impressive display of united authority. Human Admiral, Krextall began. This is Admiral Krextall speaking on behalf of the Zephyrian hegemony. You have 20 minutes to begin withdrawal from this system. We are prepared to show mercy to your primitive species, but our patience has limits. Chen stepped forward to respond. Behind Krextall, she could see alien officers studying displays that showed the human fleet. They were pointing and clearly discussing something, but their expressions showed amusement rather than concern. Admiral Krextall, Chen said, we appreciate your warning. However, we must decline your generous offer to withdraw. The bridge of Krextall's ship fell silent. Several of the alien species representatives looked shocked. Clearly, they had expected the primitive humans to see reason when faced with overwhelming force. Did you just refuse our ultimatum? Krextall asked, his voice carrying a dangerous tone. We did, Chen replied simply. You understand that we have 300 advanced warships? You understand that your entire fleet would fit inside one of our battle groups? We understand the numbers, Admiral Krextall. Then you understand that you cannot possibly win a battle against us. Chen looked directly into the camera. For a moment, something flickered in her eyes that made even Krextall pause. It wasn't fear or desperation. It was the look of someone who knew something others didn't. "Admiral Krextall," she said quietly. "You have no idea what you're dealing with." The transmission ended. On both fleets, final preparations began. The countdown timer on Admiral Krextall's display showed 15 minutes remaining. Around the bridge, his officers made final preparations for what they expected to be a very short battle. Weapon systems charged to full power, target locks established, battle formations perfected. "Sir, I'm detecting more unusual readings from the human fleet," Commander Yoss reported, his voice carrying a note of concern. "What kind of readings?" Krextall asked, though he didn't sound particularly interested. "Energy signatures are increasing rapidly across all their ships. Power levels are now 3 times what they were an hour ago. And sir, their hull configurations appear to be changing." This got Krextall's attention. He turned from his tactical display to look at his second-in-command. "Changing how?" "I'm not sure, sir. The external plating on their ships seems to be shifting somehow. Our drones are having difficulty maintaining clear sensor locks." Admiral Krextall moved to the main viewing screen and increased magnification on the human fleet. What he saw made him pause. The human ships looked different than they had before. The rough, worn hulls he had observed earlier now showed smooth sections that seemed to reflect light in unusual ways. "Enhance image resolution," he ordered. The screen zoomed in further on the closest human vessel. As they watched, sections of what appeared to be crude metal plating began sliding away to reveal sleek, dark surfaces underneath. What had looked like basic armor was actually some kind of covering that the humans were now removing. "By the 7 moons," whispered the Vextar officer. "Those aren't primitive hulls. They're camouflage systems." Commander Yoss worked frantically at his station, trying to get better sensor readings. "Admiral, the power signatures are off the charts now. These ships are generating energy levels comparable to our heavy cruisers." Krextall felt a cold sensation in his stomach. He had seen camouflage systems before, but never anything this sophisticated. The humans had managed to make advanced warships look like primitive cargo haulers. But why would they do such a thing? "Sir, new contacts," shouted the sensor operator. "Multiple energy sources are powering up throughout their fleet. I'm detecting weapons systems unlike anything in our databases." On the screen, the human ships continued their transformation. External sensor arrays that had appeared simple and basic now extended into complex configurations. Weapon ports opened along their hulls to reveal equipment that definitely wasn't primitive kinetic launchers. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the Defiant, watching her fleet shed its disguise. Around her, the ship hummed with power as advanced systems came online. The cramped, basic interior that visiting aliens might have expected was nowhere to be seen. The Defiant's true command center was a marvel of human engineering. "All ships report ready, ma'am," Commander Williams announced. "Stealth systems are disengaging. Combat configuration is complete." "Excellent. Signal the fleet to assume formation Delta 7. It's time to show our guests what human engineering really looks like." Right. The human ships began moving in ways that shocked the watching aliens. Instead of the slow, clumsy movements expected from primitive vessels, they accelerated rapidly and changed direction with impossible grace. Their formation split into multiple groups, each one moving in 3-dimensional patterns that made Krextall's tactical computer struggle to predict their next positions. "How are they moving like that?" demanded the Vextar officer. "Those acceleration forces would kill most known species." Commander Yoss had found part of the answer in the sensor data. "Admiral, their ship designs are completely different from what we assumed. They don't use energy shields like us. Instead, their entire defensive philosophy seems based on speed and maneuverability. They've built ships that can change direction faster than our weapon tracking systems can follow." Krextall stared at the display as human ships moved through space like schools of fish, weaving between each other in coordinated patterns that defied everything he knew about fleet tactics. His own ships, arranged in their traditional battle lines, suddenly looked slow and predictable in comparison. "Sir, we're receiving detailed scans of their weapon systems now," reported another officer. "Those aren't kinetic launchers. They appear to be magnetic acceleration systems capable of firing projectiles at significant fractions of light speed." "Impossible," Krextel said. "The energy requirements for such weapons would be enormous." "That's what we're detecting, sir. Energy requirements that should be impossible for ships of that size." Admiral Chen opened a communication channel to the alien fleet. "Admiral Krextal, this is Admiral Chen. I believe you wanted to know what you're dealing with." Krextal accepted the transmission, though his confidence had vanished completely. "What are you?" "We're humans, Admiral. We come from a planet where survival requires adaptation, innovation, and the ability to appear weaker than you actually are. For the past 50 years, we've been exploring this galaxy and learning about its civilizations. We've watched how you treat species you consider inferior. We've seen how you react to apparent weakness." Chen paused as her ships continued their impossible dance through space. "So we decided to conduct an experiment. We wanted to see what would happen if an advanced spacefaring civilization encountered what appeared to be a primitive, helpless species." "You've been studying us?" Krextel asked. "For months. Your fleet movements, your tactics, your technology, your psychology. We know that you have 7 species in your alliance, that your homeworlds are all low-gravity environments, and that your military doctrine hasn't changed in 300 years. We know that you see yourselves as the rightful inheritors of the galaxy, and everyone else as potential subjects or obstacles." The implications hit Krextel like a physical blow. You planned this entire encounter. We planned to test your reaction to apparent weakness. We wanted to know if the Zephyrian hegemony would show mercy to an inferior species, or if you would choose aggression. Your response has been very educational. Around the hegemony fleet, officers struggled to understand what they were seeing. The human ships had revealed capabilities that shouldn't exist. Ships that could accelerate at forces that would kill most known species. Weapons that required impossible amounts of energy. Technology that had been completely hidden until the moment they chose to reveal it. "Admiral," Commander Yoss said quietly, "our tactical computers can't predict their movement patterns. Their ships move like individual fighters, rather than capital vessels. Our weapons weren't designed to target such maneuverable opponents." Krexel realized that everything had changed. The helpless prey he had planned to destroy in minutes was actually a predator that had been studying him. The primitive technology he had mocked was actually a sophisticated deception. The desperate species he had decided to make an example of was clearly more advanced than his own. But pride and 300 ships still gave him confidence that victory was possible. "All ships, open fire," he ordered. "Whatever these humans are, we still outnumber them 7-1. The space battle began with the fury of 300 alien weapons firing simultaneously. Energy beams and plasma bolts filled the void where the human ships had been just moments before, but the human ships were no longer there. The space where the human fleet had been moments before exploded with alien weapons fire. Plasma beams and energy bolts created a deadly light show that would have destroyed any normal spacecraft. But the human ships had already moved, scattering in directions that the alien tactical computers hadn't predicted. Admiral Krextel watched his fleet's opening barrage miss completely, and felt fear replace his anger. "Where did they go, sir?" "They split into 8 separate groups moving in 3-dimensional attack patterns," Commander Yoss reported. "Our targeting systems can't keep track of them. They're moving too fast and changing direction too frequently." The human response came not as a single coordinated attack, but as something far more frightening. Individual human ships began attacking from multiple directions at once, using hit-and-run tactics that no alien admiral had ever encountered. The UES Valiant, a sleek destroyer that had appeared to be a simple cargo hauler, dove toward the alien formation at tremendous speed. As it approached the outer edge of Krextal's fleet, it fired a single projectile from its main weapon. The projectile wasn't the crude metal slug the aliens expected. It was a dense tungsten rod, accelerated to 12% of light speed by magnetic fields that required the power output of a small star. When it struck the shield of a hegemony cruiser, it didn't just pierce the energy barrier. It went through the shield, through the ship's armor, through the ship itself, and continued on to strike 2 more vessels behind it. 3 ships destroyed with 1 shot. "Impossible!" shouted the Vextar officer. "Nothing can penetrate our shields with that kind of force." But across the battlefield, other human ships were proving that impossible things were happening regularly. The UES Thunder moved through the alien formation like a predator among prey, firing kinetic rounds that moved too fast for point defense systems to intercept. Each shot was precisely calculated to maximize damage while minimizing ammunition use. Admiral Chen watched the battle unfold from the Defiance Command Center. Her ships moved according to tactics developed over decades of careful study. Humans had learned that every other spacefaring species in the galaxy fought the same way. They used energy shields to protect themselves, energy weapons to attack, and predictable formations that emphasized firepower over maneuverability. "Status report," she called out. "All ships operating at peak efficiency, ma'am," Commander Williams replied. "The enemy fleet is having trouble adapting to our attack patterns. Their formations are breaking down as individual captains try to target our ships." Chen nodded. This was exactly what the simulation had predicted. Alien military doctrine worked well against other aliens who followed the same rules, but humans had written their own rules based on the simple principle that being hit was not acceptable. The hegemony fleet found itself fighting an enemy that shouldn't exist. The human ships moved like fighters but hit like battleships. They used weapons that required enormous energy but somehow powered them from ships that were smaller than traditional cruisers. Most disturbing of all, they fought without honor or predictable patterns. A group of 5 human ships surrounded a hegemony heavy cruiser and began attacking it from all sides simultaneously. Instead of engaging in a proper ship-to-ship duel, they simply overwhelmed its defenses with coordinated fire. When the alien ship tried to target one of them, the others increased their attack rate. When it tried to escape, they moved to cut off its path. "This isn't warfare," complained the captain of the cruiser over the communication system. "This is pack-hunting behavior." Admiral Krextol was beginning to understand that humans didn't see war as a noble contest between equals. They saw it as a problem to be solved efficiently. Their ships worked together like parts of a single organism, sharing targeting data and coordinating attacks in real time. "Sir, we've lost 47 ships in the first 20 minutes, Commander Yoss reported. "At this rate, our fleet will be destroyed within 2 hours. Krextol looked at his tactical display and saw his careful formations dissolving into chaos. His captains were brave and experienced, but they were fighting an enemy that didn't follow any known rules of engagement. Human ships appeared from unexpected directions, fired devastating weapons, and disappeared before return fire could be coordinated. Worse, the humans seemed to be learning from each encounter. Their attack patterns evolved throughout the battle, adapting to every defensive measure the hegemony tried. When alien ships began moving in smaller groups, the humans switched to different tactics. When the aliens tried to concentrate their firepower, the humans simply refused to fight where the aliens wanted them to. The UES Defiant moved through the battle like a conductor directing an orchestra. Admiral Chen's flagship didn't engage in direct combat but instead coordinated the attacks of the entire human fleet. Her ship's advanced computer systems tracked every alien vessel, predicted their movements, and assigned targets to the most efficient human ship for each situation. "Ma'am, the enemy admiral is requesting communication," Lieutenant Torres announced. "Put him through," Chen replied. Admiral Krextal's image appeared on the screen. His bridge showed signs of battle damage, and his uniform was torn. Behind him, alien officers worked desperately at smoking control stations. "Human admiral," he said, his voice carrying none of its earlier arrogance. "I request a temporary ceasefire to discuss terms." Chen looked at her tactical display. The hegemony fleet had been reduced from 300 ships to less than 100 in 45 minutes. The survivors were scattered and disorganized, many showing severe damage. "I'm listening," she said simply. "Your ships, your weapons, your tactics." Krextal struggled to find words. None of this should be possible. How can such a small force defeat a fleet our size? "You made several assumptions about us, Admiral Krextal. You assumed we were primitive because our technology looked different from yours. You assumed we were weak because we appeared to be outnumbered. You assumed we would fight according to your rules because every other species in the galaxy fights that way." Chen paused, letting her words sink in. "Humans don't make assumptions. We study. We learn. We adapt. And we prepare. For 50 years, we've been watching galactic civilization and learning its weaknesses. Weaknesses. Every spacefaring species we've encountered follows the same patterns. You use energy shields, so you've never learned to build ships that can avoid being hit. You use energy weapons, so you've never developed defenses against kinetic projectiles moving at relativistic speeds. You fight in formations, so you've never learned to deal with truly independent ship movements. Admiral Krextall realized that humans had spent decades studying galactic warfare and had built their entire military specifically to exploit its common weaknesses. "What do you want from us?" he asked. Chen's expression remained neutral. "Right now, Admiral, I want you to answer one simple question." "What question? Do you surrender?" The word hung in space between the two fleets like a weapon waiting to be fired. Admiral Krextall looked around his damaged bridge at officers who had never experienced defeat. The proud representatives of 7 advanced civilizations now stared at their displays in shock and disbelief. 6 hours ago, they had commanded 300 ships and felt confident about destroying a small group of primitive vessels. Now, 31 damaged ships remained from their mighty fleet, drifting in space while human vessels moved around them like sharks circling wounded prey. "Admiral," Commander Yaw said quietly, "our remaining ships are reporting critical damage to weapon systems, life support failures, and engine problems. We cannot continue fighting." Krextall closed his 4 eyes and felt the weight of the worst military defeat in hegemony history settling on his shoulders. When he opened them again, he looked directly at the human admiral on his screen. "I surrender," he said. Admiral Chen nodded. "Wise decision, Admiral Krextall. Order your ships to power down their weapons and assume a defensive formation. My ships will escort your fleet to the edge of this system." "What about our wounded?" "Some of our ships have serious life support problems. We'll provide medical assistance and emergency repairs. Human doctors are already preparing to help with evacuation procedures if needed." This surprised Krextall. After such a devastating defeat, he had expected the humans to either destroy the survivors or leave them to die. Most galactic civilizations would have shown no mercy to an enemy that had threatened them, but these humans were offering to help save the lives of aliens who had tried to kill them just hours before. "Why are you helping us?" he asked. Chen's expression softened slightly. "Because we're not monsters, Admiral. We defend ourselves when attacked, but we don't enjoy causing unnecessary suffering. Your people fought bravely even when facing impossible odds. Over the next 2 hours, human ships moved among the damaged alien vessels, providing medical supplies and technical assistance. Human doctors, working through translator systems, helped treat injured aliens whose biology they had never encountered before. Human engineers shared repair techniques that could keep failing life support systems operating. Admiral Krextall found himself aboard a human medical ship, receiving treatment for injuries he had suffered when his bridge was damaged. The human doctor treating him was a young woman who worked with calm efficiency, despite being surrounded by alien patients. "Your species puzzles me," Krextall told her as she worked on his wounded arm. "How so?" she asked without looking up from her medical instruments. "You fight like demons when attacked, but you care for your enemies when the battle ends. Most species in the galaxy are either warriors or healers. Humans seem to be both." The doctor finished her work and stepped back. "Maybe that's why we survived on our world when other species might not have. Earth taught us that you need to be strong enough to fight for your life, but also smart enough to know when fighting isn't the answer." Admiral Krextall thought about this as he was transported back to his flagship. The humans had shown mercy, but they had also shown devastating military power. They appeared to be a species that could be incredibly dangerous or incredibly compassionate, depending on how they were treated. When he reached his bridge, he found Admiral Chen waiting for him on the main communication screen. "Admiral Krextall," she said, "before your fleet leaves this system, I wanted to ask you a question." "What question?" "What will you tell the Hegemony Council about what happened here today?" Krextall considered this carefully. The truth would shock the galactic community. A species that everyone considered primitive had just destroyed one of the most powerful fleets in known space. The implications would terrify civilizations throughout the galaxy. "I will tell them the truth," he said finally. "That humanity is far more advanced than anyone suspected. That human military capabilities exceed anything in our databases. That any species that underestimates humans will face the same fate as my fleet. Chen nodded. That's probably wise. What? You asked earlier how such a small force could defeat a fleet of your size. The truth is, you never faced a small force. You never faced a small force. Krextel frowned, confused. I don't understand. We counted 47 ships in your fleet. You counted 47 ships, yes. But Admiral, this wasn't our main battle fleet. This wasn't even a significant military operation. Then what was it? Admiral Chen's expression became very serious. This was a reconnaissance patrol. The 47 ships you fought represent less than 0.1% of humanity's total naval capacity. The words hit Krextel like a physical blow. He stared at the human admiral, trying to process what she had just told him. The force that had destroyed his fleet was essentially a scouting mission? That's impossible, he whispered. Admiral Krextel, for the past 50 years, humanity has been quietly establishing colonies, research stations, and defensive positions throughout this galaxy. We have shipyards in dozens of systems. We have fleets that make today's engagement look like a minor skirmish. We have been preparing for the day when we might need to defend ourselves against hostile galactic civilizations. Chen paused, letting this information sink in. What you fought today was a single patrol group conducting scientific surveys. They weren't even carrying our most advanced weapons. Commander Yos, who had been listening to the conversation, spoke up. How many ships does humanity actually have? I'm not authorized to give you exact numbers, Chen replied. But I can tell you that if the hegemony had decided to attack human territory instead of just threatening a survey mission, you would have faced a response that makes today's battle look gentle by comparison. Admiral Krextal felt his worldview crumbling. Everything the galactic community believed about humanity was wrong. They weren't primitive newcomers struggling to understand advanced technology. They were a spacefaring civilization that had been hiding their true capabilities while studying everyone else. Why hide your strength? He asked. Why pretend to be weak? Because weak species get left alone, Chen explained. Strong species get challenged by others who want to prove their strength. We preferred to develop our technology and expand our territory without attracting attention. It's easier to explore the galaxy when everyone thinks you're harmless. But now we know the truth. Yes, now you know. And you'll tell the Hegemony Council, and they'll tell other civilizations, and soon everyone will know that humanity is not the primitive species they thought we were. Admiral Krextal realized that this battle had changed everything. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted in a single day. A species that everyone had ignored was actually one of the most powerful civilizations in known space. What happens now? He asked. Admiral Chen was quiet for a moment before answering. That depends on how galactic civilization chooses to react to this new information. We hope for peaceful coexistence with other species. We're willing to share technology, knowledge, and friendship with anyone who approaches us with respect. She paused, and her expression became cold. But we're also prepared to defend ourselves if necessary. Today's battle should make it clear that attacking humanity is not a wise decision. The communication ended, leaving Admiral Krextal alone with his thoughts and his damaged fleet. As his ships began the long journey home, he wondered how the galaxy would change when word spread about what had really happened in the Kepler 442 system. Behind him, the 47 human ships resumed their scientific surveys as if nothing unusual had occurred.